Hey, my name is Henry Cole. I'm 29 years old and I live in a small apartment above an old row of shops on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I don't have much. A beat-up Honda that's already pushed past 200,000 miles, a rented garage that's barely staying afloat, and a body that's learned to keep moving even when the mind wants to shut down. The garage is called Cole Auto Repair. It's not really mine in the way people think. I still owe on the lease, on the old lift I bought secondhand, and on a small bank loan I took just to keep the lights on, but it's the only thing I've ever built with my own hands. I started working on cars when I was 18. Never went to college, never learned how to talk fancy. I just know what an engine sounds like when it's about to give out, and I know how to fix it before it strands someone on the side of the road. 3 months ago, everything started falling apart. A development company called Harrington Properties bought the entire block where my garage sits. They want to tear it down and put up a small retail center with coffee shops and a gym. I'm the last tenant who hasn't signed away the lease. My contract still has more than a year left, so they can't just kick me out. But they don't want to pay what they owe either. Their lawyers sent papers claiming I violated the lease by causing noise and affecting property values. It's all made up. Now they're suing me in civil court to break the lease early and make me pay their legal fees. If I lose the garage. And if I lose the garage, I lose everything. The hearing is set for Monday. Tonight is Friday. I had just finished a 14-hour day, 8 hours at the garage, then 6 more serving tables at a diner near the highway. I do both because lawyers aren't cheap. And the one I found is an old friend who's helping me for almost nothing. The rain started around 10:00 and hadn't let up since. I was driving home on the service road near Route 51, wipers on full, eyes half closed from exhaustion. All I wanted was a hot shower and maybe 4 hours of sleep before I had to wake up and go through the case files one more time. Then I saw the car, a black Mercedes, pulled halfway onto the shoulder, hazard lights flashing weakly in the downpour. 2 girls stood beside it, maybe 19 or 20, both soaked through, one of them waving at passing cars that kept going. I almost kept going, too. I was tired. I had my own problems. I didn't have the energy to be anyone's hero tonight. But something about the way they stood there made me hit the brakes. I pulled in behind them, left the engine running, and stepped out into the rain. It hit me hard, cold, and heavy, soaking through my work shirt in seconds. Car trouble? I called out over the noise of the storm. One of the girls turned. She had dark blonde hair plastered to her face, mascara running in black streaks under her eyes. "It just died," she said. "We've been here almost an hour. Phones are dead." No one stopped. The other girl hugged her purse to her chest like it was the only dry thing left. She looked at me with the kind of fear that wasn't dramatic. It was real. I walked to the front of the car and popped the hood. It only took a minute to see the problem. The battery terminals were heavily corroded, the connections loose, and the rain had made everything worse. Not a complicated fix, but not something you do on the side of the highway in the middle of a storm without tools or a jump pack. I closed the hood. "This isn't going anywhere tonight," I told them. "You're going to need a tow or roadside assistance." They looked at each other. One of them spoke first. "We could call our dad, but..." The other one gave a small, tired laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "He's busy. He's always busy." I recognized that tone. It wasn't complaining. It was the sound of someone who had stopped expecting anything different a long time ago. "There's a motel about 15 minutes from here," I said. "I can give you a ride. You can call for help in the morning when it's light out." They both stared at me like they weren't sure I was real. "You'd really do that?" the one on the left asked. I shrugged. "I'm not leaving you standing out here in this." They grabbed their bags, locked the Mercedes, and climbed into my Honda. The back seat had a toolbox and a stack of old invoices. Compared to their car, mine probably looked like it belonged in a junkyard. They didn't say anything about it. The girl who got in front turned toward me as I pulled back onto the road. "I'm Sophie. This is my sister, Maya. We're twins. Henry." Maya's voice came from the back, still shaky, but calmer now. "Thank you for stopping." "It's nothing." Sophie studied me for a second. "What do you do?" "I'm a mechanic. I have a small garage." Maya leaned forward a little. "So you knew what was wrong with our car right away?" "Battery and terminals, not hard to fix, just bad timing with the rain." We drove in silence for a while. The only sound was the rain hammering the roof and the tired rhythm of the wipers. Then Sophie spoke again. "You were coming home from work." I gave a short laugh. "Second job, actually. 2 jobs, garage during the day, nights at a diner near the highway." Maya was quiet for a moment before she asked, "Why do you have to work so much?" I hadn't planned on telling them anything. But the rain and the dark and the way they weren't looking at me like I was beneath them made it easier to be honest. "I'm being sued," I said. "A development company wants my garage space. They're trying to break my lease early. If I lose the hearing on Monday, I lose the business and probably everything else." Sophie turned in her seat to face me fully. "But if your lease isn't up yet, how can they do that?" "Because they have better lawyers and more money. That's how it usually works." Maya's voice was soft. "That's not fair." I kept my eyes on the road. Fair costs money. People like me usually can't afford it. None of them spoke for a while after that. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It just sat there with us. Then Sophie said, almost like she was talking to herself, "Our dad works in law, too." I glanced at her. "Lawyer?" "No," Maya answered from the back. "He's a judge." I didn't think much of it at the time. There are a lot of judges in Pennsylvania. My life was already complicated enough without adding curiosity about strangers. I just said, "You should tell him what happened tonight." Sometimes people in power need to hear how regular people get ground down. Sophie looked out at the rain-streaked window. "He hears everyone except his own daughters." They didn't say it with anger, just quiet resignation. They told me their father was always in court or at meetings or at political dinners. He gave them everything money could buy, nice house, nice car, good schools, but he was rarely actually there. Maya said he thought providing was the same as loving. Sophie said sometimes they just wanted him to sit through one dinner without checking his phone. I didn't have advice that would fix any of that. I just drove. When we reached the motel, I pulled under the awning so they wouldn't get any wetter than they already were. Before they got out, Sophie turned to me. "Henry, you seem like a good person." I smiled, tired. I just didn't want to see 2 girls freeze to death on the side of the road. Maya shook her head gently. "No, good people always say that, so it sounds like less than what they did." Sophie pulled out her phone, which she'd been charging with a portable battery in her bag. "Can we have your number in case we need the car fixed tomorrow?" I took my wallet out, found one of the slightly bent business cards for the garage, and handed it to her. "Call that number. I open at 8. She looked at the card. "Henry Cole. I hope your hearing on Monday goes okay." I nodded. "Me, too." They got out and walked into the motel lobby. I watched them disappear behind the glass doors, then pulled back onto the road. The rain was still coming down hard. My shirt was soaked. My hands were cold on the steering wheel. And I had no idea that stopping for 2 strangers on a highway would end up changing the rest of my life. I just knew I was tired. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel completely alone in it. Monday came too fast. The Allegheny County Courthouse smelled like old wood, paper, and nerves. I sat at the defendant's table in the only white dress shirt I still owned that wasn't stained with grease, wearing a tie I had borrowed from my neighbor. My hands were clasped under the table so no one could see they were shaking. Mr. Clark, my lawyer, sat beside me, flipping through the file one last time. He wasn't a big-shot attorney. His office was small, his hair was gray, and he looked as tired as I felt, but he believed me. At this point, that mattered more than anything else. Across the aisle, Grant Harrington sat in a gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Next to him was his lawyer, Davidson, a man with a smile so thin it looked sharp. Grant didn't even glance my way. To him, I was just an obstacle on a blueprint. Mr. Clark leaned closer and spoke quietly. "We have the lease. We have proof of payment. We have photos showing the garage is clean. They don't have real evidence, but they have money and a strong legal team. Stay calm. When they ask you something, just tell the truth." I nodded. My throat was dry. The bailiff stood up. "All rise. The Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County is now in session. The Honorable Judge Benjamin Whitmore presiding." I stood. The door behind the bench opened. Judge Whitmore walked in. He was in his late 50s, tall with silver hair and a serious face. I had never seen him before in my life, but I recognized him instantly. The shape of his eyes, the way he tilted his head slightly when he looked down at the papers, the same features I had seen 3 nights ago on 2 soaked girls standing beside a broken-down Mercedes. My stomach dropped. It couldn't be. Judge Benjamin Whitmore was the father of Sophie and Maya. He took his seat, opened the file, and scanned the first page. His eyes stopped on my name. Henry Cole. For half a second, his expression shifted. Just a flicker. Then it was gone, replaced by the same professional calm. He looked up and met my eyes. He knew. I could see it. The recognition passed between us without a single word. My heart was pounding so hard, but I was sure everyone in the room could hear it. "Be seated," he said. Everyone sat. Judge Whitmore turned the page slowly, his fingers tapping once against the folder. "We are here today on the matter of Harrington Properties vs. Cole Auto Repair," he began. "The plaintiff is seeking termination of a commercial lease and damages. Are both sides ready to proceed?" Davidson stood immediately. "Ready, Your Honor." Mr. Clark answered, "Ready, Your Honor." Judge Whitmore was quiet for a moment. His eyes stayed on the file. Then he spoke. "Before we begin, the court will take a 15-minute recess." A ripple of surprise moved through the room. Davidson rose halfway. "Your Honor, is there a problem?" Judge Whitmore looked at him evenly. "Nothing that requires argument at this moment. Court is in recess." The bailiff called for everyone to rise. Judge Whitmore stood and walked out through the side door. I stayed frozen in place. Mr. Clark turned to me, frowning. "This is unusual." I couldn't answer. My mind was still trying to catch up. 10 minutes later, the bailiff approached our table. "Mr. Cole, the judge would like to see you in chambers." "Mr. Clark, you're to accompany him." Davidson immediately objected. "Your Honor cannot have ex parte communication with one side." The bailiff cut him off calmly. "The judge has also requested Mr. Clark's presence. Everything will be placed on the record if necessary." Mr. Clark stood, still frowning, but motioned for me to follow. My legs felt heavy as we walked through the side door and down a short hallway. The judge's chambers were lined with dark wood and tall bookshelves filled with legal volumes. Judge Whitmore stood by the window with his hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the city. "Sit down, Mr. Cole. Mr. Clark, you as well." We sat. Judge Whitmore turned around. His face was serious, but not cold. "3 nights ago, my daughters called me from a motel off Route 51. Their car had broken down in the storm. They had been standing in the rain for nearly an hour. No one stopped." He looked directly at me. "Until you did." I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "Your Honor, I didn't know they were your daughters." "I know," he said. "That's exactly why this matters." He walked over and sat behind his desk. "Sophie and Maya told me what happened. That you had already worked 2 jobs that day. That you were exhausted. That you still stopped. That you didn't ask for anything. That you spoke to them like they were people, not an inconvenience." I looked down at my hands. "Anyone would have done that." Judge Whitmore shook his head. "No, most people didn't. You did." Mr. Clark was staring at me now, finally understanding. Judge Whitmore continued. "This creates an ethical problem for me. If I continue to preside over this case, the plaintiff could claim bias. I've considered recusing myself." My chest tightened. "But before I made that decision," he went on, "I reviewed the entire file, and what I found suggests something more troubling than a simple lease dispute." He opened a different folder. "Harrington Properties claims your garage violated cleanliness and noise standards. Yet several of the photographs they submitted don't even match your location. One of them shows a completely different building." Mr. Clark sat up straighter. Judge Whitmore kept going. "They also claim you were 3 months behind on rent, but your bank statements show the payments were made on time. The management company appears to have misrecorded them." I turned to Mr. Clark. He looked stunned and angry at the same time. "Most importantly," Judge Whitmore said, "I had my clerk pull the last 2 years of cases involving Harrington Properties. This is the 6th time they've used nearly identical claims to force small tenants out before their leases expired. 4 of those tenants couldn't afford to fight and simply left. 1 went bankrupt." The room felt colder. I wasn't the first. Judge Whitmore looked at me. "Mr. Cole, I will not rule in your favor simply because you helped my daughters. That would be wrong. But I also cannot sit here and pretend this is an ordinary commercial dispute when the record suggests a larger pattern of using the courts to pressure people who don't have the resources to fight back." I managed to speak, my voice rough. "So what happens now?" Judge Whitmore stood up. "I'm going back into that courtroom. I'm going to ask the plaintiff to explain the photographs, the payment discrepancies, and the pattern of similar lawsuits. If they cannot provide satisfactory answers, their case is going to have serious problems." He paused, then added in a quieter voice, "My daughters told me something else. They said that in the car you told them that sometimes people in power need to hear how regular people get ground down." I lifted my head. Judge Whitmore looked out the window again. "I've been a judge for over 20 years. I've heard thousands of cases, but I'm not sure I've been listening to the people behind those cases as much as I should have." He turned back to me. "You reminded me of that. Not with a speech, with one decent act in the rain." I didn't know what to say. Mr. Clark put a hand on my shoulder and spoke quietly. "Just breathe." Judge Whitmore walked toward the door. "Let's finish this the right way." When I walked back into the courtroom, Grant Harrington was already at his table, arms crossed, looking irritated. Davidson stood beside him like a dog that had been waiting too long to be let off the leash. Judge Whitmore entered a moment later. His face gave nothing away. No one watching would have guessed he had just spoken to me in chambers. "Court is back in session," he said. Davidson rose immediately, voice smooth and confident again. Your Honor, the plaintiff will demonstrate that Cole Auto Repair has repeatedly violated the terms of the lease through excessive noise, improper disposal of industrial waste, and repeated late payments. Judge Whitmore raised one hand. Before you continue, counsel, the court has some questions regarding the evidence the plaintiff has submitted. Davidson paused, clearly caught off guard. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Whitmore picked up a stack of photographs. These photographs were described by the plaintiff as being taken at Cole Auto Repair. Can you confirm the date they were taken, who took them, and verify the metadata? Davidson answered quickly. They were provided by Harrington Properties' property management team. That is not what I asked. The temperature in the room shifted. Judge Whitmore set the photos down. Can you confirm the date, the photographer, and the exact location? Davidson glanced at Grant. We can supplement the record later. So at this moment, the answer is no. Davidson's jaw tightened. Not at this moment, Your Honor. Judge Whitmore lifted one of the photos. This image shows a blue sign in the upper left corner. According to the defendant's evidence, Mr. Cole's garage does not have that sign. How do you explain that? Mr. Clark stood up. Your Honor, we have also questioned whether these photographs depict our client's property. Judge Whitmore nodded. Noted. Grant Harrington was starting to look uncomfortable. Judge Whitmore moved to the next set of documents. The plaintiff also alleges that Mr. Cole was 3 months behind on rent. However, the defendant's bank records show 3 separate transfers made on the correct dates. Here are the transaction numbers. Why does the plaintiff's record show these payments as missing? Davidson hesitated. There may have been an accounting error. An accounting error? Judge Whitmore repeated slowly. One that led to a lawsuit seeking to terminate a lease and demand damages. Davidson said nothing. Judge Whitmore turned his attention to Grant. Mr. Harrington, would you like to address this? Grant stood adjusting his jacket. Your Honor, with all due respect, this property is undergoing redevelopment. Mr. Cole's business no longer fits the commercial vision for the area. We are simply trying to protect the value of our investment. Judge Whitmore studied him for a long moment. So the real issue is not lease violations. The real issue is that Mr. Cole does not fit your development plans. Davidson quickly cut in. That is not what my client meant. But Grant had already said it.